the doorbell rings, and in the space of a single second, your dog becomes someone else entirely. They launch from wherever they were, mid-nap, mid-chew, mid-stare out the window, and suddenly they're at the door, body coiled, nose pressing into the gap beneath it, tail moving in that strange, uncertain rhythm that isn't quite excitement and isn't quite fear. The guests come in, shoes get sniffed, faces get studied. Someone reaches down to say hello, and your dog backs away. Someone else sits quietly on the couch, and your dog circles them twice before settling nearby. You watch all of this happen, and you say the same thing you always say. He's just being weird. And everyone laughs and moves on. But here's what no one says out loud. Nothing your dog just did was weird. Nothing was random. Nothing was impulsive. Every movement in that room, from the moment the door opened, was a calculation. And the calculation had already begun before your guest even stepped inside. Most dog owners have a working theory about why their dog behaves the way they do around guests. The friendly dog rushes up, tail spinning, demanding immediate attention. The nervous dog disappears under a bed or flattens themselves behind your legs. The territorial dog stands at the threshold and makes their position known. You probably placed your own dog somewhere in that spectrum, friendly, shy, protective, and that label has quietly become the explanation. He's just an anxious dog. She's always been social. He doesn't like strangers. These labels aren't wrong exactly, but they are radically incomplete, because they describe the surface of the behavior without touching what's driving it underneath. And what's driving it underneath is something far more deliberate than excitement, anxiety, or instinct alone. Your dog isn't reacting to your guests. They're assessing them. Behavior research into canine social cognition has shown that dogs run a rapid, multi-layered evaluation of every unfamiliar person who enters their space. This isn't chaos dressed up as a greeting. This is a structured process, systematic, sequential, and neurologically hardwired, designed to answer a specific set of questions about who this person is, how they move, what they intend, and whether they belong. What looks like a dog being weird is, on the inside, something surprisingly organized, an intelligence quietly at work. The science behind this is both rigorous and fascinating. Researchers at the Family Dog Project in Budapest have spent decades mapping the cognitive architecture of canine social intelligence, and what they found challenges almost everything we assumed about how dogs process the humans around them. Dogs don't just detect human presence. They monitor it with a precision that rivals our own social cognition. They read gaze direction. They track shifts in body posture. They register changes in vocal tone with a sensitivity that most humans don't consciously apply. When a guest enters your home, your dog isn't simply logging the presence of a stranger. They are building a behavioral profile, a live, updating model of who this person is and how they're likely to act. Studies have demonstrated that dogs can distinguish between individuals who behave consistently and those who don't, and that they adjust their trust responses accordingly. They are not confused by people, they are reading people in real time, with a level of attention most of us reserve only for the people we love. And that's exactly the point. The reason your dog washes your guests with such quiet intensity isn't suspicion for its own sake. It's devotion in disguise. Think about what your dog has built with you. Not just comfort, not just routine. A carefully mapped social world in which you are the anchor, the safe point, the fixed star around which everything else orbits. When a stranger walks through your door, they aren't just entering a room. They are entering that world. And your dog, who has spent every day studying you, learning you, understanding you at a level no human probably has, feels the weight of that intrusion in a way you simply can't. They're not watching your guests because they're nervous. They're watching because they're protecting something. The question behind every circle, every sniff, every long stare across the room is always the same. Is this person safe to let into our world? But the assessment your dog is running goes deeper than behavior. Far deeper. A dog's olfactory system is estimated to be anywhere from 10,000 to 100,000 times more sensitive than a human's. Not as a metaphor, but as a neurological fact. The moment a guest crosses your threshold, your dog is already reading what no one in the room can see. Stress hormones embedded in sweat, cortisol signatures that spike when a person is anxious, deceptive, or emotionally activated. Fear compounds that humans release unconsciously and can't control. Researchers at the University of Naples have demonstrated that dogs can reliably detect human emotional states through scent alone, meaning your dog may have already formed an impression of your guest before that guest has spoken a single word or made a single move. What your dog thinks about a visitor doesn't begin when the interaction does. It begins at the door, sometimes before it. This capacity didn't appear by accident. For most of the 15,000 years that dogs and humans have shared space, the arrival of an unfamiliar human near a settlement was a moment that carried genuine stakes. Dogs that could assess stranger intent quickly, threat, neutral, or ally, were invaluable. That assessment circuitry wasn't bred out as dogs became companions. It was refined, sharpened, redirected from survival contexts into social ones. Your dog's careful observation of the people you bring home isn't a leftover wolf behavior that never got updated. It is a finely tuned human reading system, shaped by millennia of living alongside us, built specifically to understand us and to protect us. Here's what most people never consider. Your dog isn't only watching your guest, they're watching you watching your guest. Research into social referencing. The behavior by which dogs look to their primary person to calibrate their own response to ambiguous situations shows that your dog is using you as emotional evidence. If your shoulders tighten slightly when a certain person walks in, your dog registers it. If your voice lifts just a fraction when you greet someone, or drops half a register, or carries that particular strain that means you're performing comfort rather than feeling it, your dog registers that too. The profile they're building of your guest isn't drawn from the guest alone. It's a composite, what the visitor projects directly, layered with what your own body says about them when you think no one is paying attention. In many cases, your dog's final impression of someone in your life is partly a reflection of your own unspoken one. They are, in the truest sense, reading between the lines of you. Now consider this: the guests your dog accepts most readily are almost never the ones who try the hardest. Research on dog-stranger interaction, including studies published in the journal Applied Animal Behavior Science, consistently shows that high-energy approaches, direct, sustained eye contact, and immediate physical contact tend to trigger avoidance responses, even in otherwise sociable dogs. The person who crouches down and stares and says, "Oh, I'm such a dog person," in that particular eager voice is often the one your dog retreats from. The person who passes the assessment fastest is usually the one who sits down, looks away, and simply exists without making demands. No performance, no agenda, just presence. Your dog isn't rewarding friendliness, they're rewarding emotional intelligence, the quiet, rare quality of someone who knows how to be in a room without needing to control it. So the next time you're watching your dog work a room full of guests, try something different. Instead of managing their behavior, start reading it. Which person do they consistently avoid, even across multiple visits? Which guest do they move toward and settle near, unbidden, without any encouragement from you? Dogs don't perform social comfort. They don't smile when they mean to retreat, don't stay when they want to leave. What you're watching isn't politeness. It's data. Unfiltered, unperformed, unchosen social data that your dog has been gathering and processing since the moment your guests arrived. There are people in your life your dog has never warmed to. There are people they sought out the very first time they met. It might be worth sitting with the question of whether those assessments, on reflection, turned out to be accurate, and how long it took you to arrive at the same conclusion. Every time you've watched your dog move through a room full of people, sniffing edges, choosing corners, circling someone twice before finally settling at their feet, you are watching one of the most sophisticated social assessment systems in the animal kingdom operating in real time. Not confusion, not instinct misfiring, not a dog being difficult or weird or anxious for no reason. You are watching 15,000 years of coevolution doing exactly what it was shaped to do: map the people around you, read the middle level you can't consciously access, and quietly place themselves between you and anything that doesn't feel right. The guest your dog never quite accepted, no matter how many visits passed. It might be worth asking what they noticed, long before you did. Has your dog ever reacted to someone in a way that didn't make sense at the time, but later it did? Leave that story in the comments, because in the next video, we're going somewhere even more quietly remarkable. If your dog builds a social map of the people in your life, what happens when one of those people disappears? And does your dog grieve someone who was never really theirs to begin with?